Hi guys, I'm Oliver from Spitfire Audio with a quick tip of how you can use a harp within a composition. I'd like to share how I use a harp creating new sounds, layering the harp with other instruments. I also want to share some velocity programming tricks and some tips of how to use compression. Then we're going to go through a piece I'm writing currently. It's for a commercial. Unfortunately, I haven't got a picture because it's the first round of drafts, but I thought it'd be brilliant to share with you my process on this piece. Here it is. So in this case, I'm using the Spitfire harp to double up the piano. And this is one of my favorite things to do because the harp has such a wonderful attack. And here we have a normale hits. I'm using my own reverb there, Space Designer. It's an IR I've created. I can't reveal just yet. Maybe in the future I will show this to you. But yeah, it's my own reverb that I just created that I really love. Then we have different articulations. Just going to show this to you real quick. Check out Paul's walkthrough if you want to see the libraries in more details. Flageolet is really nice actually. So harmonics, basically just dampening the strings a little bit like on a guitar or on a string instrument. Then slits is for faster passages. I actually really like the sound of that. It sounds softer somehow. Bisbrigliando is very amazing. Pretty much the swarm we have, but this one is just a harp, kind of swarm single harp, so it's a very soft, gentle swarm. And then we have some effects, hits, etc. And if I just dive into the library, we can go into here, harpospheres, and you have a few warped and tweaked sounds that you can load in as well. You have access to the individual patches as well for less CPU usage. Anyway, so I'm usually doubling the harp up with a piano or different kinds of pianos, and you will see here I'm actually doubling up the piano 3 times with different harp techniques. So I have here Oliver's felt piano. Again, just to show you here, I'm using a bit of EQ, so taking out the low end, adding a little bit of high end. If you add high end, usually on the piano, it gets out a little bit the mechanics and kind of the hammer sounds of the piano. Then compression, if I don't want to use too much compression and just subtly squeeze it, I go to my loudest position. Here is a very kind of, it stays the same dynamically. I don't have all the compression in the mix, maybe 60 to 80% if I just want to subtly squeeze it. Here it kicks in just a little bit. More here. And then however the maximum is, it reduces it. So 1.9 dB, I'm gonna make that up in my output level. So I'm reducing above the threshold, like 1.9 dB, and I make up the overall volume of the instrument. So you have actually the quiet parts, you can hear them much better. You lose a little bit of dynamic, but this is a very gentle compression right there. So I'm going to usually to my loudest parts, and then I'm moving my threshold until the compressor here kicks in. And I'm working, a lot of the times I'm working from a preset, so it gives me like the right attack and release times as well. The ratio 10:1 is actually quite a lot, so I don't have anything stick out at all, which I want for this composition because the piano is just accompaniment. And then instead of just having this piano, which is really wonderful, I want to create my own sound. So I'm using the harp to double up my piano there. And what I've done as well, so you can hear this melody here on the bottom. I'm just going to play it for you on a harp. This was a main theme on a commercial I did before. And now the strings need to shine, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a hint onto this main theme. And I bring it out in the harp on the lower strings. And if you listen carefully, so the piano has quite a few different velocity layers and kind of dynamic differences. Even though I compress it, I still allow it to breathe. And I didn't want that in the harp to happen. So I didn't want like this kind of where kind of the one of the plucks is a bit louder than the other. So what I do for that is I add a little bit of compression, yes, but I also do already in the programming, I select all of them. I go in here, functions, MIDI transform, fixed velocity, and I have here max, and I went something like 80. So I tested it out a little bit, and I operate. And then all my loudest hits there that go above 80, they will be reduced to just 80 velocity, basically. So if we have here, so these were all here, like going way above, and I just wanted them to stay like that, to not jump out. So that's one of the tricks that I was telling you, like I like working with that. Obviously, if you make it kind of fixed, or if you quantize and fix all the velocity, it's going to be robotic. That's why I chose, in this case, to use max velocity. If we go here, I'm doubling up this melody 1 octave higher, and I want it to be kind of steady. So here I chose to do a fixed velocity of 80. So I didn't want it to be like disappearing or jumping out too much. I have a bit of extra reverb there as well. So here I'm using, just if you're curious, VSS 3 as my master reverb. So I send most instruments, I send a little bit through that one. And then I'm using flageolet to double up this high melody, just to create my own kind of sound there. Oh, this sounds so beautiful, and just with the piano. It just adds such a subtle touch to the piano, and it makes it its complete new instrument with the normal harp plugs. Maybe it's actually a little bit too much harp, probably, if we want to have this going through as like a piano piece. So I'm just going to take it down maybe 2 dB. This one as well, maybe this one a bit more. For me, that's just a wonderful sound. And I use the harp a lot in that kind of context. And for me, it just adds a little bit of clarity into like a very reverby piano, for example. Right, let's have a quick look at those strings. So I'm layering here the strings as well. I didn't tell you, I already had a little bit of feedback for this one. Just a first quick email saying they love the string sound. So what am I doing here with the strings? So I'm using Spitfire solo strings, long flautando. Sounds like this. Using a bit of panning as well, putting it in the right field. I just see a mistake here. So this shouldn't be overlapping. That should only be for the legato. So I'm just gonna make this like this. So for me, this is Command L, trim the notes to the following start of a MIDI information. And now it's a very beautiful texture, but you have a little bit of a dip in between the notes. So I'm adding this violin legato here of the chamber strings. So the programmed legato has like programmed transitions in between the notes. And together. And then together. Wonderful sound there, and you can hear the flautando and the legato strings clearly separated there, but together it sounds really wonderful. And then I'm using Olafur's evolutions from the quartet, so the first evolutions we have, violin 1, and I'm just doing exactly the same notes. I just copy it, but what happens with this one is they have built-in pre-recorded evolutions and musical phrases, so I'm just going to play it to you so you understand. So I think it adds a little bit of interest and realism to my piece. Let's just listen to the violin section. And you can hear there Oliver's violin doing some gentle twitching there, and I quite like that little touch. My second violin, I'm doing a similar thing, solo strings mixed with legato. Here I have flautando as well. I'm using all 3 mics, so full-on sound. And then for the viola here, I'm only using Oliver's viola. It's quite a cool sound there. Quite a bit of reverb. That was kind of the task. It's everything is drowned in reverb pretty much. Then the cello, for me, it plays quite an upfront role, so it's a little bit louder than it should be in a normal orchestral mix because it carries the main melody. Again, I'm doing a mix of these. Programming quite important, as you can see there, to add realism and expression. Then I'm using a bass, Spitfire studio strings, sul tasto. So I have, actually here I'm also using studio strings, so a slightly drier room for the cello to stick out a little bit more. I have more choices in placing it in the mix. In this example, a little bit more upfront as a solo instrument. The bass as well, I just love the studio strings bass. It has such a warm, beautiful sound. I'm using the long sul tasto, so you can hear for yourself. Beautiful, warm sound. Sine wave an octave lower. Usual trick. Then for the intro, I'm using the LCO scrubs. One of my favorite sounds ever. And then for the beat, I'm using BT Phobos, just a preset from here. And then another preset just for the kick, choosing here one kick pulse number 4, and they sound like this. Quite cool kick. The beats coming in here automated. Cool, thank you very much for watching and listening. I hope you'll get to enjoy the Spitfire harp library and some of the others as well. Here is the whole piece again. Take care, bye bye.